Welcome. I'm Stephanie Townsend Ayala, attorney at law, speaking today with James Ray, attorney at law, and we're talking about proposed changes to the PR bond office in El Paso. Welcome. Tell me, James, what is your biggest concern about the changes?
Well, Stephanie, thank you for having me. I think the biggest concern I have is what's this going to cost? All the changes that the government here locally, our county government, have shared with us that they have in mind are going to come at a cost. And so my biggest concern is who's going to pay for them. I'm of course a taxpayer like yourself, like the rest of our community, and I know that whenever our government proposes doing something more, that it's going to cost something. And I know it's going to also likely put somebody that's providing that service out of business, or it's going to in some way affect and devastate the business. So when I've learned of the plan to basically overhaul the pretrial services program, I thought of, okay, well, what's going to be offered now by the county government? They're going to offer free release from jail for people who used to otherwise go out of jail or be released from jail for a fee through a bonding company. And then I understand that part of this plan also includes a much more aggressive approach to placing a court-appointed attorney or public defender for that defendant or that accused. And so
that's a super important part of the program. I don't think Vince Pettis, the commissioner, told us that he was going to give a free attorney to everyone, no matter what their income, no matter what their resources, that's part of his plan.
Well, we learned back a year ago or so, Commissioner Pettis was very concerned about the way court appointments to attorneys was taking place. And so there was a lot of restructuring, so to speak. There was a study done at the state level that tended to cast a negative light on the way our process was being done here, that there was a select few that were being appointed and that they were very generously compensated and it wasn't done in a fair way. And so a huge overhaul, so to speak, has come. And now the way I understand it, recently with a letter that I now have been shared with by a client, is that upon release from jail, my client and all people that are released from jail shall report to apply for their court-appointed attorney within the next business day.
Wait a second, you mean everybody arrested in El Paso County is going to be automatically released under the PR bond and then told to get a free taxpayer attorney the next day?
That's what we feel or are afraid that this program is ultimately going to result with. And so, yes, people who used to pay to get out of jail, their own money, are going to now get out of jail for free. People who used to pay to have an attorney of their choice represent them are now going to be represented for free. And so it's to somebody who's in private business.
As a private attorney?
Yes, and my livelihood relies on being able to earn a living based off of clients hiring me. They're now being dissuaded from hiring me because they're going to get an attorney for free. And whereas before the burden was on them to hire an attorney, now they are just ordered to show up and apply for their free attorney.
And they don't even check whether they have income or resources to pay on their own?
I'm sure there are supposed, standards for which they are evaluated in terms of their income. But my understanding is it's a great deviation from what it used to be in the past. And whereas people would, really only qualify for a court-appointed attorney or the public defender based on their household income, I understand now it's being done on an individual income basis. And so just to give you an example, I had a young UTEP student who would have otherwise hired me because his father is a longtime client of mine. I learned from the father that, his son got a free attorney. And
paid for by the taxpayers.
Yes.
Let's include that. When people get free attorneys, that means you and I and everyone listening, taxpayers are paying for these free attorneys. So this man, his family would have paid for you to represent him, but instead, because of Vince Pettis' changes, he gets a free county-paid attorney.
Well, it seems as though people are going to accept this free service from the government, county or otherwise, to provide for them, whereas before the burden was on them to go out and obtain it on their own, at their own cost. And so I have no doubt that there's probably some cost that is expected of this person at the end. You know, this college student, for instance, he may have to pay at the end of his case a fee to reimburse for his court-appointed attorney, however few dollars, but it will certainly pale in comparison to what the overall cost was, whether it's a public defender or court-appointed attorney.
Well, how can this be? Because Vince Pettis and County Judge Veronica Escobar have sold this as a huge cost savings. They never told us that it's a get out of jail free card for everybody, even violent offenders, not non-violent offenders, but rapists, people charged with attempted murder. So all these people are getting out for free automatically, and they're getting free lawyers paid for by the taxpayers. How come this hasn't come to light?
Well, I think we're just now starting to see what is evolving from the plan. And so, you know, before the great majority of people on misdemeanor cases, let's say the more common types of offenses for people who are arrested, they were always assumed to go out and hire their own attorney. Now the approach is, we're gonna appoint an attorney. You got to come down and apply, and you're going to be qualified. And if you're not qualified, then I guess they're, of course, going to then have to return to the way things used to be done, and going out and trying to secure an attorney if they wish to have an attorney. But it just seems like we've had this paradigm shift from do for yourself to now we're going to do for you. And so I've had a huge outcry from fellow defense attorneys in the last several weeks since this has come about, that they have seen their retained cases or their privately paid cases decimated by this new approach.
Because the county is giving everybody a free taxpayer paid attorney.
Supposedly based on qualifying and, you know, the income
right.
of this person.
They supposedly were only going to do nonviolence, and now we see that it's murderers, convicted people who are rapists, other violent crimes. So what's being told to us about how it's supposed to work, it's not how it's working, is it?
Well, I just don't see how this is going to be paid for, other than putting the cost, you know, on the taxpayer, because these people for years have been able to afford their attorneys for their representations, especially the less serious offenses. And, you know, those costs are in the hundreds, maybe into 1,000, a little bit more, but they have historically been able to afford this. And I'm certain that they can still afford it. But now they're being thrusted into applying for a court-appointed attorney and, you know, qualified for that court-appointed attorney. And you're taking away the opportunity for them to go out and get that attorney on their own and pay for their attorney themselves.
Right. I heard about another case where County of El Paso taxpayers are paying for the attorney to represent a UPS driver who owns a home. If a UPS driver who owns a home can get the taxpayers of El Paso County to pay for his attorney, it just seems beyond me. I don't think the taxpayers can afford that.
They can't. And at some point, I think we need to seriously consider and demand that our government revisit what it is they are to provide as a service to the public, and what they should allow the private sector to do. And so, you know, as a private defense attorney, having provided my service now for 15 years and been able to, you know, earn a living by having my customers, my clients pay me directly, they could still do that. But instead, I feel like that opportunity for me to have that business and livelihood is being interfered with, because the government is saying, wait a second, customer, before you consider going out that private defense attorney, you're going to come and let's make sure you don't get one for free first.
Wow. You know, we only have a minute left. Any final thoughts or suggestions for our viewers?
I just think that we need to be very careful about what our government is doing to provide more than what's necessary, and think about how much is that going to cost? Who's going to pay for it? And from where? And logic only tells me they have to raise our taxes. And is that what we want to have our taxes raised for? Is for people who would otherwise likely be able to afford their own attorney being provided one for free?
Good question. Thank you so much, James Ray, attorney at law, talking about the problems related with upcoming changes in the pretrial programs and the PR bond office here in El Paso. Please stay tuned. We'll be back.